go. All right. Well, first I want to say thank you for having me. This is my first conference, and I will agree with what was said yesterday. This is phenomenal, and I really appreciate it. And I'm sorry I missed out in prior years because I have been to those other conferences. And I will say, yesterday when we talked about taking one or two things home, I have a notebook full of things I'm going to take back to Takoma Park. And I know my staff always hates when I come to these things. I was already texting with my city manager last night. I'm like, wait till Monday morning. So thank you for having us today. And I want to say that building on what I think the last comment a mayor made last night and Emma's presentation this morning, where we are in our country and being here with all of you today, there are things we can do. We are at a crossroads in many ways. And today I'm very excited to present what we're doing in Takoma Park with 16 and 17-year-old voting. And I want to say, and this is rare to be able to say this on any kind of policy change we put in place, that we've had this in place for a number of years, and I can tell you there are almost no downsides to doing this. Other than, and this is the downside of many of the things we do, there are people who don't believe this is actually something we should be doing, but other than putting it in place, getting people engaged in our local city elections, this is going really well for us. And I'm going to show you some things, but I really want to draw your attention to the report that's in your binders, Young Voices at the Ballot Box. That report talks about all the research that has been done on this. In Europe, Germany, Scotland, Austria, they all have 16 and 17-year-old voting at the local level. They have great resources in that report and also answering tough questions on this. So I won't go through everything today, but please look at that report. So as background, Takoma Park, just to give you a little sense of who we are, we're right here, actually just a few miles away on the doorstep of our nation's capital. We're about 2.4 square miles and have about 18,000 residents. Back in around before 2013, we're looking at how can we expand voting in our city, make it easier, and get more people involved in the process. We went through a fairly lengthy process looking at 16 and 17-year-old voting, and I'm glad to say that we were able to pass a charter change to allow 16 and 17-year-olds to vote in our city elections in 2013. We were the first city in the United States to pass this, and we've had it since for 3 elections now. I'm not going to go into a lot of the reasons. I think Emma did a great job talking about why we need to expand voting around the country, but these are some things specific to 16 and 17-year-olds. So the first thing we all know here who've run for election, what's the best predictor of somebody voting? Prior voting, right? When we go door to door, we get our voter list or our walk-around list. What do we look at first? How many elections they voted in prior to that. And we know from a lot of research that voting is a habit. If you start a habit early, you will continue it. And so the idea is, all the research shows this, and looking at our European counterparts, that if you start voting at 16 and 17, you are likely to continue that into as you get older. The other reason voting at 16 and 17 is an ideal age to actually get people in this habit is a couple of reasons. One, for many, not all young people, 16 and 17, you're still home. You're in your hometown, you're likely in high school, you're taking that civics class, so you're learning about how our government works. And you're in the place where lots of times you grew up or your family has roots. And that's a great place to start a habit, a good habit, like voting. And you're taking what you're learning in high school, in your class, and you're actually applying it and seeing how that works. Having people start voting at 18, that 18 and 20 or 18 and 21, studies show that's the most, transient part of our life, right? If you are going privileged and go away to college, that's a time when you're going back and forth. If you're entering the workforce, out on your own, getting jobs, getting a house, whatever it is, that age just remember when you were 18 to 22, right? Your life was pretty busy. You may have been moving a lot, back and forth. That is not an ideal time to start a good habit that you want to carry the rest of your life. The other reason is it really is a tool to help reinforce the civics lessons they're learning in high school about registering to vote, about learning about candidates, asking tough questions. And it does build stronger communities. It is engaging a part of our community who are already, they're starting to interact with the city governments, right? 16 and 17-year-olds, a lot of them have jobs, they're paying taxes, a lot of them are utilizing our resources in our city, either through our rec departments or other things. Unfortunately, some of them are having interactions with our police departments, and so they are interacting with their city governments. And we've actually found that younger voters make better voters. So, before I show you some of the numbers, how do we reach young voters? Actually, Matthew and I were having this conversation last night. Lots of times we hear, oh, young voters didn't turn out. We're so disappointed in millennials. Why aren't they voting? Well, really, is that how we should blame young voters, or should we be blaming the rest of us who aren't actually reaching out to this population and talking to them enough? And so we've had a real effort in the city since 2013 to not just say, oh, 16 and 17-year-olds can vote, but to engage them in the process and make sure that they know they can vote and they find it interesting. So we've done a lot of social media. We've done youth events where we've had voter forums specifically geared towards young adults. School visits, we have Takoma Park is very active. People who live there, and the young people are no different. And so our high school has a Young Dems Club, it has a Young Republicans Club, and we go speak there. And we just started a youth council this year. In addition, one of the things I forgot on this chart is that many of the campaigns, we just had an election in November. This year, I think almost every single candidate who was running had somebody on their campaign who was the youth outreach person, and it was a high school student. I had one the prior year, and I think I was the only one, but this year, almost every single candidate in ward races had a youth outreach person. So on social media, some of the lessons we learned, we're very lucky. We have an awesome social media person in our city government who does a lot of fun things, interactive media posts. Videos are important, and remembering the non-English speakers and the non-English dominant speakers in the community. The Teen Talk Forum was excellent. This was an opportunity where we got together with our rec department and our schools, had young people come, work with actually one of our teachers in our local high school. They developed the questions ahead of time, came, asked the question, interacted with all of the candidates. The key here is really getting young people involved in the planning. I think someone said on the panel yesterday, planning with our communities rather than planning for, and I think that carries over into having events like this. Because the young people are the ones that they know the things they're interested in and how to get their friends at an event. As a 48-year-old, that's not my job really to figure out what is really on their minds. We need to hear from them. So it was really key to have them part of it. And having pizza wasn't a bad idea either. Food seems to be also, and I think that's any age. This year, I know I was talking to a colleague yesterday about this. When we were doing this, there were a lot of people who said, well, I don't think young people really understand the whole process yet, and we need to educate them before we give them the vote. And I was like, well, there's a lot of adults I'd like to educate better before they actually get to, but we don't make that requirement. And so we moved forward, but I do think having particularly a youth council that we started this year is really strengthening that. And in fact, I think 2 of the young women who are on our youth council served as in those campaigns that I spoke about. So they're seeing all the different angles of being on a campaign, what that side of it looks like now, looking at our city government and what that means. So So this just gives you some of the numbers we can look at. We have our youth voters back from 2013 to 2017, and you see as a percentage of registered voters, they're actually outpacing our adult voters. And we're going up each year, and we're hoping to continue that. So I wanted to show you, because this is about youth voting, and I think they should tell you about it instead of me.
I was motivated to vote just because I can. It's so cool that Takoma Park lets 16-year-olds vote, and so I was really excited to be a part of my city.
It's election day here in Takoma Park, and I'm asking questions to voters, and I'm here with a special voter, one of our 16-year-old voters. Takoma Park's really special in that we allow 16-year-olds to vote. So I'm going to ask Kieran, correct, what it means to be able to vote as a 16-year-old.
It's really important as a 16-year-old for me to be able to vote because, as data has shown us, all over the country, youth aren't as engaged in politics. And so when you actually engage them earlier on, you can ensure that they'll be engaged for life, which is really important.
That is great. And what ward do you live in?
I live in Ward 6.
Awesome. So that's one of our contested races, so it's really kind of more exciting. What issues are you kind of more focused on, and what are really important issues that you were voting for?
Education is really important to me. I think that, especially in terms of local government, education is really a key issue that we need to focus on. But I also think that learning about how laws that maybe the federal government has implemented and how those laws are then going to affect us on a local level is really important. So that's another thing I was looking at.
Now, a tough question. What do you want to be when you grow up?
I want to be President of the United States of America.
Well, thanks again for stopping and talking, and especially for coming out to vote. And don't forget that you can vote until 8 p.m. here at the Community Center, which is 7500 Maple Avenue. Thanks.
And so that just gives you a sense of the excitement that we do have on the 16 and 17-year-old voting in Takoma Park, and particularly this last year, it was really exciting because we had a lot of contested races for people to come out, the young people to come out. So just quickly, as wrapping up, just to kind of go off of what Emma was saying, we do other things in Takoma Park. As I mentioned yesterday, we have non-U.S. citizen voting since 1993. And we have started since 2013 the same-day registration. This is a quote from our city clerk, and that really has made a lot of difference for us. The same-day registration is really, we're always trying to do new things, and we have early voting. We had early voting in the park, and it was great because people were out jogging or taking a walk in the park, and they were like, oh wait, I'm not sure I registered. And we're like, no worries, register now, come over. And we had great voter turnout for that. This just shows you the numbers on our non-citizen voting. Happy to get into this later. These numbers aren't as high as I would like them to be, and I think there are, again, some things we could be doing in the city to actually boost these numbers. And looking ahead, we actually switched our election dates this year to be in sync with state and federal. One of the reasons is to increase participation in our local elections. So how this all is going to work once we do switch over is a huge thing that we're working on right now in our city government. So anyway, thank you.